Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 72nd episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. In my opinion, some of the best films are movies that really tackle subject matter that the everyday person goes through, but is rarely talked about. The subjects that we keep to ourselves, the things a lot of us are too embarrassed to talk about, or we think people won't understand us when we discuss this. Films that show us everyday, regular people living their lives, trying to make the best of situations they are in. Films that don't glamorize life but relish in the positives and negatives of reality. To me, these movies are the most relatable ones, even if they don't pertain to you. They may pertain to someone you know on a personal level, which helps us empathize with people who may be different than us. An incredible example of this is a film called Mary and Max, a stop motion animation film that takes on some of the realest and hard to deal with issues that kids and adults go through. I will be discussing this film and how it relates to the human experience, not necessarily point by point. So, with that, there will be spoilers, but I will not tell the ending for those who haven't seen it. Mary and Max, 2009, directed by Adam Elliott. Tony Collette and the late Philip Seymour Hoffman voice our leads. Now, Mary and Max is quite an original stop motion animated film, and let me say it's not really for kids, despite being a gorgeous stop motion film with an 8-year-old girl as its lead. This film is about an 8-year-old girl from Australia named Mary who writes a letter to a man named Max in New York City to ask a very specific question. And in turn, these two become pen pals and best friends despite their locations and age. I'll set the stage a little bit before we dive into the themes. It's 1972. Mary is in Australia telling us about her life. She is 8. She has no friends. She likes her next door neighbor. Her mom is drunk, and her dad is absent mentally but there physically. She has a birthmark that they say is the color of poop on her face. She gets bullied in school, and her favorite show is The Noblets. Max is in New York City. He is 44, very overweight, lives alone, has no friends or family. He has an imaginary friend. He's Jewish. He likes to invent recipes, and his favorite show is also The Noblets. Now, I'm not here to go through this point by point, but here to highlight the excellent writing and discuss the themes here. When we are a child, we are very curious about a lot of major things that shape us in life. Kids soak up information like a sponge and are very observant. Even if they don't understand things, they still will notice them and can eventually connect certain dots. The type of influences that children have will absolutely shape the way they grow up and the things that they value. For instance, this movie covers a very real problem a lot of people have in this life: alcoholism. Now, I don't want people to sit here and think that this movie isn't funny because it is. This movie tackles these subjects with care and love. Mary's mother is described as wobbly. She smokes heavily and drinks her sherry that she describes as adult tea that needs constant testing. Her mother was drunk all day, every day. And unfortunately, we all likely have known somebody who is like this. As a result, she was an absent mother, a thief, and constantly messing things up, like baking cupcakes with cigarette butts in them. Unfortunately, this trait is often passed down to our young. Mary, as life progresses and takes turns, she herself becomes an addict to pills and alcohol, and this almost leads to her doing something crazy to herself. And it ultimately takes her mother's life as well. Like I said, this movie isn't quite for kids, but the way the director takes on some of these topics is just done with so much care and detail. And it comes from what feels like a real place. Alcoholism is a rough one to deal with, especially watching your loved ones suffer through it. This film shows you how alcoholism affects not only you, but the people around you. The way substances can plague your family and lead to some of the most unpleasant events that can come in one's life. Staying on the subject of addiction, and I wanted to give these two different types of addiction their own stage. Another subject touched in this movie is food addiction. Max is a food addict. He actually goes to Food Addicts Anonymous. He invents certain foods like the spaghetti hamburger and chocolate hot dogs. Max is clocking in at over 300 pounds when we first meet him, and as things go on in his life, he gains a significant amount of weight, which of course will affect one's health. Max was a lonely man, and food was his best friend and comfort. A safe space, and a lot of people can relate to this. Food is amazing. It tastes good, and we need it to survive, but it can hurt us just as much as it makes us feel good. We all have some sort of relationship to food, and Max's was very unhealthy. Also, Mary herself does have a weight problem, which led to even her own mother bullying her for her weight. She likes eating condensed milk and chocolate. Not the best diet. In this film, we see what can come from this sort of addiction, and I will not discuss that here. But these are some of the hardest truths to tell oneself about. A lot of people were or are bullied in this life. Some of us as young kids, some as adults, even. In this day and age, I will say this has gotten a lot better, but in 1972, when this film takes place, bullying was a very common thing. Both of our leads suffer bullying in this movie. Mary gets it from a kid at school who teases her about her looks and birthmark, and Max was bullied his whole life as a kid for various reasons. What I love about how this movie handles this is it is funny, even from the bully's point of view. Like when Mary's bully takes her sandwich at lunch, throws it in the trash, and then urinates on it. Why that was funny, I don't know. It's the delivery of the joke, though. I'm not that mean, I promise. When people have been bullied in life, they can usually offer advice to those going through it currently. In Mary and Max's letter passing, he gives her some great advice on how to deal with bullies. It works like a charm. The execution of handling this subject shows us that being bullied doesn't mean that you are less than or that you are wrong for what you are being bullied for. As hard as some of this can be to watch, it is quite uplifting as well. Max was bullied for a variety of things, and it's all because people misunderstood him. It is revealed that Max has Asperger's. He calls himself an Aspie. This comes out about halfway through the film and it explains pretty much everything about our character and why he acts the way he acts. His disconnect from other people, his structure and order. He described his mind as working too logically and analytical. Mental disabilities are a tough thing to deal with. Max actually hates the term mental disability because he feels he doesn't have a disability, that his Asperger's is a part of his personality, which I think was such a beautiful point to this movie. To show us that these are people as well, just maybe a little different than you. But Max was just a regular guy. He contributed to society, took care of himself, and didn't harm or bother anyone. Just like anyone else, people who may have some mental disorder just need to adjust to life like any other person. Some just may require a different level of care, but these people deserve a voice, and us as fellow humans can take the time to educate ourselves on these different things. I think this is very important, and the filmmaker handles this with such an open heart that this film put a tear in my eye. One major theme, and I think it is the second most important one in this movie, is depression. Mary and Max both go through some crazy bouts of depression, and it's really heartbreaking to watch, especially Mary's. In order to dissect this, I'm going to have to dig into the plot a little bit. Max receives a letter from Mary discussing some very explicit and uncomfortable topics that gave him some very intense anxiety. So much so that he was hospitalized for it. Mary asked him some questions that would have truthfully made any adult uncomfortable if they were asking them that. But Max's mental state, along with the awkwardness of the situation, was just far too much for him to handle. This means he hasn't been writing Mary, and it really breaks Mary's heart. When he's out, he can't seem to muster up the courage to write his only friend, which sends him into a deep depression. He starts gaining a lot of weight and feeling very down on himself. Mary and Max do reconnect, and Max lets her know of his Asperger's, and she learns everything about it and writes a book about it without Max's permission. Well, Max doesn't take to this very well, and he cuts their friendship off, sending Mary into one of the darkest depressions that almost leads to her death. Drugs, alcohol, loneliness consumes her, and Mary was very, very close to making an attempt on herself. This is incredibly hard to watch, as you have fallen in love with both of these people, and us as the audience knows how much these two love and need each other in their lives. It's tragic, yet so brilliant the way this was executed. They use humor to mask a lot of the depression because, make no mistake, this movie is funny from start to finish. I can't express enough how much love and warmth was put into making this film from everyone involved. This film shows you how deep the rabbit hole can go with depression, but it also shows you how even when it's pitch black, there may be a light at the end of the tunnel, so do not give up on yourself. I think the number one theme of this movie is loneliness. These people needed each other, two lonely souls, and all they each wanted was a friend in life. Not having a single friend could be hard for anyone. No one to talk to, share ideas with, love with, help in situations, and vice versa. On this earth, we are a society of beings that need others to survive. The structure we've cultivated relies on others, and we will always need someone sometime in life. Even the biggest loners you know needs people at times. Mary was so alone, she had to write a letter to a random guy just because she has no one in her life she could even talk to. Being lonely can lead to depression, and depression can obviously lead to all kinds of roads. Everyone should have a friend in life. There is someone out there for everyone to hang out with, even if it's just one person. I couldn't imagine not having my buddies to talk to, lean on, and kick back with. Max was so lonely he had about 8 different goldfish, and he names all of them Henry. Henry VIII. Every time one dies, he gets another one. In addition to his goldfish, he has an imaginary friend who sits on the radiator and reads self improvement books. He clung to these little things just to have some shred of interaction, even if it wasn't with another human. That's no way to live. That's why Mary and Max's relationship was so special. They loved each other no matter what. Their age didn't matter, personal issues, or even geographical barriers. They were best friends, despite all the things that say they shouldn't be. It was genuine and pure, and one of the best on screen platonic relationships we've ever seen. In addition to the themes of this film, this is some of the most beautiful stop motion work I've ever seen. I'll put this movie up against Mr. Fox, Coraline, Nightmare Before Christmas, and Guillermo's Pinocchio any day of the week. The writing is sensational, it's a beautiful story, it's super original, and is one everyone should see before they die. It's a funny film that will fill you with every emotion you want out of a movie. I would highly recommend this movie to anyone on this planet, and I think this may be one of the best animated films of all time. I'm going to give Mary and Max a perfect 10 out of 10. Guys, thank you so much for watching my Mary and Max review. Let me know if there's a film or topic you would like me to review. I got a podcast with my buddy, The Cutting Room Floor. I'll link that down below for more movie content. Follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader. I'll link that below as well. I will be back next week. And don't forget the popcorn.